Hey, Christine, thank you so much for coming on with me. We've been talking for the last week and got finished reading your book yesterday. Really great book. So, how
Thank
are
you.
you doing
And
today?
thank you. I'm doing great. And thank you for having me. And I'm
Yeah.
happy that you really like my book.
Yes. Just introduce yourself if you could. Are you what do you think of yourself today? An author, an artist, you're a daughter of a Colombo captain, you're a
No,
survivor.
I don't
So,
think a survivor, I'd say, but I don't think of myself as a daughter of a Colombo captain or anything like that. I never really did.
mhm.
I'm who I am. I am actually a hairdresser. I don't really work at doing hair anymore, but and an artist. That I still do, an artist, and now an author. So that's how I look at myself. Christine Petrizzo, an author, an artist, and an ex hairdresser, I guess, and
Yeah,
a mother, and a grandmother.
and yeah, and that's actually the most important, right?
Yeah, that is, yes.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's a great book, but why this book and why now?
Well, I actually always through my life, I always thought my life was a little different than most people. So I always said, I have to write a book one day. I would really like
Hmm.
to write a book about my life. And, you don't think about it anymore for years. But after my father passed away a few years ago, I just said, you know what? I just want to do it. It's healing. It makes everybody know the real true story behind my life. And, not everybody's happy about it, I guess, in the family. Like, oh, why do you have to talk about everything, But I just felt like I needed to do it. And I'm happy I did it.
Yeah, I think it's a good book. And what made the title? What made you say the sins of the man I called dad? That's an interesting title.
It really is because there was a lot. He lived a lot of different lives, my father. And there were a lot of things that, he was very, I don't know, let me use the word, controlling to us. So, it was his sins. These are his sins. He did a lot of things that he shouldn't have done, but he was still really a great father. I mean, I loved him. It was just what he did, in our lives with my mother and the girlfriend and a lot of different things. So
Right. No.
that's why I had, we go through the book, I'll say so.
Mhm.
That's why I named it "The Sins of the Man I Called Dad." As we go through questions, that's why I
Yeah,
named.
of
Yeah,
course. And then you have the subtitle, My Father, the Mistress, and the Mob. And so
right.
what do you want the readers to understand about what the book really is about and what it isn't about?
Well, it's really about, my life and my sisters, our family from when we were little in Brooklyn. We were born in Brooklyn in East New York. And my father was always different,
Mhm.
I mean, we always knew that as even little girls. But the reason why I had to put the mistress in there, because a lot of things happened as we got older when he brought this woman into our lives and his and just changed everything. It changed the whole dynamic of our family. And I really believe that she had a lot of control over him,
Mhm.
a lot of control out of power. I don't know, I guess he sold his soul to the devil when it came to her because she really wasn't, but he adored her. He
Mm.
really adored her through the years. And it happened when we were young, teenagers, actually, when
Mhm.
it all started. So it was many years that my mother suffered and we all suffered through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to do is I was thinking about going talk about your childhood and everything, but let's take this point to talk about who the mistress is, and really because that's really a key part of this book, and I think the readers need to kind of understand that dynamic. And so who walk us through the story of the mistress, how your father got to know
Yeah.
her and the effect that it had on your family.
All right. So my mother, we moved to Dix Hills. This is, as my life goes on. So my father big in his industry, was making a lot of money. We moved from Farmingdale. He had a big house built in Dix Hills, beautiful. And he had another friend that was also in the construction industry that he knew from Brooklyn, and his wife. So they said to my parents, we want to take you out for dinner. So they take them to this restaurant. I named it. I did change the name in the book to Stavola's.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe later I'll tell you the real name, but it sounds like it. Anyway,
Yes.
they
Mm-hmm.
take them, two young couples. I guess they were in their 40s at the time. And they go to the restaurant, and my mother's girlfriend, Marie, bends over and says to my mother, just watch out for her. She's the hostess, but it was the family business, she's daughter. Just watch out for her because she was after Vinny. And I put my foot down, and so he backed off. But she's flirting with all the wealthy men in here, and there was wise guys that hung out there too. I mean, it was that kind of a restaurant.
Right.
So she was now, so my mother said, all right, my mother was more quiet and didn't realize. So that's how it started. Their first meeting there, and then all of a sudden we were there all the time with my grandparents. We were there every weekend, and so my grandfather was the one that said to me, she's after your father. She's got her. And I said, no, I didn't believe it. I said, she's not his type. He liked the beautiful women with the, sexy women. When we get into the redheads lounge, he liked that type of a woman with the long hair and the makeup.
But this woman wasn't really stood out as attractive. Like
No. I mean, she dressed nice, and but she had that Italian accent. You couldn't even understand what she said.
Yeah.
And I just didn't see it. And my grandfather would say, "Mark my words, just mark my words, because this is." So then I started to then watch. And I started to see with my own eyes how this was going. She was flirting with him. My mother didn't really catch on because she would sit next to my mother and, make believe they were talking. And this went on for a long time. And then that's when they began to have an affair. And we still kept going there, And then we started to find out as the kids what was going on. And we had to be quiet. We had to lie to my mother. And that's why I say the sins of the man I call dad, because then as we started to find out. I mean, it wasn't right out in the open, but then it was. I mean, we all knew. We were the children that knew, and we had to do this, That's why I say he was very manipulating, and he was very controlling of us, We just always listened to him. That's the type of man, that he was.
Yeah. How did he treat your mom in general, though? Well, I know that she had a rough life. She was 59 when she passed away from cancer, and that's horrible. And I'm sorry that you lost your mom.
Yeah, it was a really hard time for me. But my mother had a very hard life. She was from an abusive family in Brooklyn. She was really young. She met him. He was like working for the garbage company, and they met on the street because he was a garbage man at the time. And then she would be walking to work because her parents made her quit school very young and go to work in the factory. So she just came from a very dysfunctional family. So she was never happy. So then she met him. I guess she was about 17, and they started dating, and she really felt loved by him. She felt love finally in her life. But as I mean, she used to tell me he was always a womanizer. She always told me, from when they were just married. But she didn't like to say anything bad about him because she truly, truly loved him. I think it was because she was a businesswoman. My mother wasn't. My mother had to quit school as a young girl. I don't think that she was so smart. She came from Italy. She came right off the boat from Italy. So it's not like she had that deep. But
she had a big accent too. So
very big, yeah. And he just looked at her as because she was a businesswoman. I think he was attracted to that. And she ran the whole restaurant, even though it was her parents. They all came from Italy, and he just looked at her differently. I can't figure it out. I just never could. I was like, no, that can't be, What really he saw in her, I don't know. She was very controlling. So I guess he liked that. She was controlling him. She wanted this and she wanted that. And he felt like he was giving her all these things, and she was so happy. Look, I have to say this. when I was going through my divorce, all right, I was at the restaurant. I would go and see my father, and I'm there one night, and she comes over and she sits down and tells me, I just have to tell you something. So if you meet somebody else in your life, these are the three things I'm going to tell you. And now my father's sitting there listening to this.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at him like, are you kidding me? She just told you exactly what she did to you. She said, you have to stroke their ego. All right. This is what you do when you meet a man that you stroke their ego. So this is what my mother wasn't doing. You tell them, you make sure that they love you much more than you love them. And
Mhm.
your money is your money is your money, and their money is your money. And, and I just looked at her and said, wow, I mean, really? And I look at my
She laid out
father.
the whole plan
She laid it
right
all
there.
out. She laid out the whole plan. And there's my father laughing, like, oh, really? I mean, yeah. So that was it. So from that day on, I knew exactly what it was. Like, she didn't care about his family or his wife or anything because we kept going there. They were already having an affair, you know.
But what did he gain from that affair? It's not like she was all that beautiful. I mean, she obviously had the business side, but was he? I mean, how? It's he had a life and a family that was good, and I'm just trying to wonder what gap she was able to fulfill for him that
I
he
don't
couldn't
know.
get elsewhere.
I don't know. Maybe he liked that Italian accent, the Italy. I don't know. I mean, they weren't. My mother and father were not born in Italy. They were born in Brooklyn. So maybe that was it.
Was she Neapolitan? Where was she from in Italy? Do you know?
I think she was from Sicily, a
So she's
small town.
Sicilian, just like your mom, then.
Yeah, right. So, you know
Hmm.
what? I can't really say exactly where she was from, but she came from Italy as a young kid. And then I can never understand why her accent was so deep. Like, she didn't, I could never understand what she was saying. I don't know how he did, but, you know, her whole family, they were
Hmm.
all, you know, very deep accents, so you couldn't really understand them. But I don't know. He loved going to the restaurant. He loved hanging out there. He was there every single night of his life. He was at the restaurant. I mean, that was it, you know.
And
Yeah.
so, when your mom passed away, she was 59. What did
Right.
he do? How did he? What happened to that relationship with her at that?
Well, they sold a house in Dix Hills, and then they bought a townhouse, a beautiful townhouse in Manhasset, and it was beautiful. And to see the thing that my father, I just could. He would tell my mother. Meanwhile, he was with her. He was even living with this other woman, living with
Hmm.
her, because he was hardly ever home. He worked in New Jersey, so
Yeah,
it's not like he was coming home every night. And we were already out of the house then. We were married. Okay, so
yeah.
my mother then was in this big house by herself. So they sold the house, and she moved into a beautiful place. But he told her, oh, I'm going to start coming home and working from home. Make one of those rooms my office. So she got the decorator and they made the room
Hmm.
beautiful. And I would just say, oh my God, I just wanted to cry. Like, she really believed that he was going to come home and start working from home. He didn't want to drive back and forth to New Jersey. But he was such a liar, you know. This is where the betrayal and the lies, you know. I just couldn't, you know, look at him and say, like, why could, but we weren't allowed to talk about it. It's not something
Yeah.
that we could, you don't talk back to him. You don't say anything. So it's not like I could have said, why are you doing this? You know, he was
Hmm.
already living with his mistress at the time. They were living together. Yeah. They lived in the garden, right in back of the Garden City Hotel. They had well, they didn't move up to the penthouse yet, but they had another apartment that he bought. Hmm. Anyway,
Right.
so my mother then, you know, was living over there, and she got sick.
Mm.
In 7 weeks, my mother had cancer, and she passed away. You know, we were at you know, back and forth at the hospital. She was diagnosed with lung cancer because she smoked so much, because she really loved him. We used to
Hmm.
say, Ma, why don't you just divorce him? You'll get a
Hmm.
lot of money and blah, blah, blah. And you'll, you know, and she just wouldn't, you know, she just really adored him, you know.
Yeah.
And then he would come to the hospital at night, or when she went back home a little bit. He would come all the time, but he always had that. At that point was when the war was going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the war was going on. So he always came to the house with bodyguards and, men to the hospital. There was always a group of people, but he did make it there to see her, and he would cry. I would see the tears. He felt bad, but
Yeah,
and then
this was early 1992, and the war
yeah,
had started in November of 91, and
right,
so it was really in a bad situation. So he was at a safe house. Basically, when they call the mob term is the what is it they they hit the mattresses or whatever. But he was in a safe house with other men, and so he had to go with guards to be able to visit your mother in the hospital, and it would be late at night.
right, yeah. And I did talk to him and said, "Dad, what's going on?" I mean, I would just see the news and say, "Oh my God,
Yeah,
what kind of war is this? I mean, they're killing each other." He goes, "All right, don't worry about me. Just worry about your mother." You
yeah.
know, I was very close to my mother, so it was very quick, and she passed away. So,
Mhm.
and then the funeral was hard because I mean there was so many people there, but a lot of them couldn't come because they couldn't be around that. It was a hard time. Who was hiding?
Yeah, it's
Who was
horrible.
yeah. So
Yeah, and then he basically lives the rest of his life around her. He never leaves her, and then he passes away in 2022. Right, he was 89 years old,
right,
and so you have three sisters. So you're one of four sisters. All
right.
of you have. There's grandchildren. There's a lot of family members. So when he passed away, he had quite a bit of money and all that. And what happened with the will? How much money did you guys get?
We didn't get anything.
Hmm.
He did have an original will, but he never signed it. And she wouldn't let him because his attorney would call us and say, "You
Hmm.
better get your father." He wasn't only an attorney, his attorney, it was his friend also.
Yeah.
Said, "You better get your father to sign this will because she's not allowing him to sign it." I keep telling it was like maybe 2 years it was going on. He wouldn't sign it because she wouldn't let him. She said, "They're going to come after me. You're going to give them." Blah, 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 blah." So that's how that went. He never signed the original will. So he
Mm.
was older, and I remember he invited us over. Now they moved to the penthouse. Okay, so when he got out of jail, because we're skipping over things, but we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. Um, Now they were at the penthouse. He bought her. Okay, when he got out of prison. So he invites us over one night for dinner, and the food's delivered from the restaurant, but of course she wasn't there. But he said, "Listen, girls, I just want to let you know," because he was older then. Maybe he was 85. So he said, "I just want to let you know, I'm not signing the will, but she knows what she has to do. Okay, she just knows and we're like, really, but it's not. Nothing's in writing.
Hmm.
Don't worry about it." That's how he was. He was tough. He was a tough guy. Don't worry about it. She knows what she has to do. This place here, and it was worth a lot of money. You'll get half of this place and other things. So I just want you to know that he was all happy. She agreed to it. Blah blah blah. But that never happened. So she got everything. That he worked hard all his life. I'm not going to say this man was very big in his industry. He made a lot of money. He was very powerful out there. And he, in all the unions, he works with all the five families in the steel industry. They all made a ton of money, but he
Hmm.
had nothing set aside for his children. So this is the sins of the man I call dad. So I have to keep going over the name of the book. You know,
Yes.
he could have did that because his attorney would say, "Listen, he could sign this will. How's she going to know anything? She's not going to know a thing if he signs the will. What's the difference? She's got plenty of money." And she had plenty of money to begin with from her family and everything he gave her. She made a lot of money off of the mob. I'll tell you that.
Hmm.
She
Yeah.
made a lot of money. She was involved in a lot of different businesses. She was collecting money. She was no stupid person. So he was, though. That's why I say he was. I don't know how a man like him allowed a woman to have control over him. And I think a lot of them also thought the same thing about
Yeah.
him, you know?
Yeah, that's just yeah, no, you're right on that. And it's interesting when you were growing up and everything, it seemed like your father tried to separate um you guys from that life. And you said your father basically uh, made sure that you were not around a lot of that, but you could tell that, that something was different. So from your perspective as a kid, did he do a good job of kind of protecting you from dangerous associates and that type of thing?
Oh yeah, we were always protected with that. We didn't, we were never together with all them. It was more just family. I mean, of course, we had his friends or family like Ralphie, Uncle Ralphie. Like we just knew. I mean, you just knew who was who. You know.
Yeah.
Not that they sat down and talked about it or told you this guy that. They didn't. It was never anything like that. But
Yeah.
he
No.
kept that life away from us as much as he can.
Yeah. And so I'll tell you, one of the most intense parts of your book was when you're 13 and you and a friend go to this place, and you basically, it's a guy that you guys that you called your uncle. So is your mother's
No,
cousin?
no, it wasn't my uncle. It was my girlfriend's uncle.
Oh,
We were
your
13,
girlfriend's uncle.
and she said, "Do you want to come and work with me at my uncle's store?"
Yes.
And we're 13 because her sister used to work there. And she said she can't go, so he said I could come and bring a friend.
Okay.
So I asked my mother, and she said okay. So we went, and then he was. I mean, I never met him before. It wasn't her real uncle. It was an uncle through. It was her mother's through the family, but it wasn't a
Yeah,
blood. It
mother's
wasn't a blood
cousin's
relative.
husband or
Yeah, it
something.
wasn't a blood relative. But anyway,
Yeah.
he was big and sloppy and fat, and
Hmm.
he was just disgusting. So he brings us a big thing of orange juice, but he had alcohol in it, vodka
Hmm.
or whatever, and he's pouring it for us to drink. And I knew there was alcohol in it, and I said, "We can't drink this." He bought us cigarettes and everything,
Mm.
and nobody came in the store. It was so disgusting. The store, it was like, oh, it was closed, but it was like.
Hmm.
So now she's drinking it. So, I wasn't really drinking it. I took a few sips and I'd run in the bathroom and pour it out. And then she gets so tired, and he goes, "Oh, come in the back room and lay on the boxes here." And he closes the door and she fell asleep. So he
Hmm.
chased me around the store and he was trying to attack me. And, he had his hands all over me and trying to stick his tongue in my mouth. And I was terrified as a 13.
Hmm.
And finally, I ran outside and then I had to come back. It was like it was really a horrible time. But she's still sleeping back there. She didn't never got up until
Hmm.
it's starting to be the time that we were leaving. I mean, a few people came in the store, so at least then he left me alone. But I didn't
Yeah.
know what to do. I was 13. This never happened to me ever, and
Mm.
we didn't knew about anybody trying to do this to a young girl. It was you didn't talk. I didn't. We didn't ever knew about any of that. We were very protected. So then it was time to leave. So then she started waking up, and she came out, so I'm telling her what he. She goes, "Oh, I don't believe you." I go, "Oh, come. How could you not believe me?"
Hmm.
Anyway, her mother comes to pick us up, and I told her mother. And
Hmm.
she, "Oh, I believe you. He's horrible. He's not really, related, blood related, but please
Mm.
do not tell. I have to tell you, promise you're not going to tell your father. Your father will go to jail because,
Hmm.
she put it into words like my father's going to kill him. So, you know,
Hmm.
don't tell your father." And I knew my father was involved at that point. I was 13, but I knew. So, I said, "All right, I won't say it." But I went home and I was so distraught over it. So I told my
Hmm.
mother maybe a week later because it just never
Hmm.
left my head. And my mother said, "Oh, what?" And she was mad, but she's "All right, I promise I won't tell your father." But she told him. So
Mm.
I think it was a week later, him and my Uncle Ralphie, he's over. And they would always be outside talking or downstairs or whatever. So they called me downstairs in the basement and said, "Oh, come down here, Cooker. We want to talk to you." And I said, "Mom, why do they want to talk to me?" Like, I was scared.
Hmm.
Why would they want to talk to me? She goes, "Just go, go." So I go. I go, "What?" They go, "What happened with this guy?" And I told them. I had to tell them the story. And I felt I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to think. But They said, all right, don't worry about it. I go, but I don't want you to go to jail. That's why I didn't say. They said, don't worry, but nobody's going to jail. Nobody's
Mhm.
going. Okay. And then a little while later, I don't remember how long it was that I found out from them, my friend's mother, that he was in the hospital. He had broken legs. He had no teeth. He was in the hospital for a few months. That's how bad he got beat up. So,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And so that was that. But, it was a horrible time for me at 13 because I was very protected. We were all protected from men. Like, no one ever really did anything around us. We were very protected. My father and his friends and everything.
Oh my gosh. And so,
Family.
and Ralphie Lombardi, he was your uncle. What was he involved in that life?
Oh,
Or
yeah. He was with the Colombo family, but he wasn't really our uncle, but we always called him Uncle
you're
Ralph.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, yeah. Yeah, he was in the Colombo family. Yeah.
Right. And then, so the thing was, I guess you guys eventually moved to Dix Hills, right?
Right.
And why did your parents decide to make that move? Was it out of just status, a better schools, better house, or was maybe closer to your father's business, or what was the reason for that?
No, my father actually worked in New Jersey. I don't know why he picked to move to Dix
Yeah.
Hills. It was even further. It took him. It was hours for him to
Oh
get to
my
work.
gosh.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but it was because he was making a lot of money. We had a
Mhm.
small house in Farmingdale where we grew up, and then we were still teenagers. But we moved to this big, beautiful home, and it was great. It was beautiful. It was like a
Yeah.
Hollywood house with the built-in pool. But I mean, it was just beautiful. We even had a guest house on the property that it was beautiful, the guest house. And
Yeah.
that was the life that we lived until, he met his mistress and brought
Yeah.
her over there to see it. But we'd have parties. He
Hmm.
always wanted us home. We were never really allowed out on New Year's Eve. He'd say, just have a party. And
Hmm.
we have so many people there. He loved everybody. He loved all the guys. He'd hang out with all our friends. And he loved guys because he was in construction. My
Hmm.
father loved all the cranes and the trucks and all that
Yeah.
stuff. He was obsessed with it, obsessed. And he never missed a day of work. He
Hmm.
was at work. He'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work in New Jersey. He just, he wasn't around that much. He didn't come home every night. And
Yeah.
then, he was out with his mistress besides. So he lived a lot of different lives.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
cats have 9 lives. Well, he had a few different lives that he lived. Yeah.
And so he's from Naples, and then your mom's from what part of Sicily? Do you know where your mom's from
No,
originally?
you know what? It's funny because they never really talked about it. My grandparents would speak Italian, but only to each other. They never taught
Yeah.
us. They didn't want us to know what they were talking about. But I had a great life as a child.
Yeah.
Beautiful. My grandparents were the best, and it's
Hmm.
in the book. It was like a fairy tale. They were the best grandparents ever. We had such a nice life with, years with them. And when we lived in Brooklyn, they were we were close to them until they died. My
Yeah.
grandfather died pretty young.
Hmm.
And that's when he told me what was going on with my father. And he goes, mark my words. And then after he passed away is when I really started to know what was going on.
Right. No, that makes sense. And then as you got older, you mentioned places like the Manor East and the
Yeah.
Redheads Lounge. What do those spots represent in your father's world? Were they just venues, or were they kind of headquarters for, business in that life?
I mean, I don't know because it was before he met his mistress at that
Uh-huh.
restaurant. We used to go to the Manor East, which was in Massapequa, and Tommy O'Sara, who's in the mob, he got killed
Yes.
in the war. He owned the Manor East, but he had a restaurant in the Manor East, so we used to go there a lot with my mother, the
Hmm.
family. We were kids, and I used to see all the beautiful women that worked there. They were the barmaids. Not that they were really they were the waitresses. So they'd have the red hair. They were just beautiful. The blonde, the brunette, the redhead, and they dressed so sexy. And I would always see, my father looking at them and the guys like Tommy, and they would all be hanging out at the bar. So that's what that was. And we had a sweet, when we turned sweet 16, well, 16, he had a party for us at the Mannery. So we all had this like 200 people at the Manneries in the ballroom. It's like a wedding for each of us. But Tommy then told my father, I'm going to close the restaurant. I'm only going to do catering. So my father decided at that point, oh, you know what? I'm going to open up a little lounge. So he opens up this Redhead Lounge. It was in Levittown, and of course he had them working there because they left there because there was no more restaurants. So my father took them, and they were the barmaids, and they were beautiful. And that's what he likes, That's the type of women that he liked. But it was a real hangout for all the wise guys. They were always there. We were never allowed there. Never.
Yeah. Where was the Redheads Lounge was? Do you remember the intersection or address?
Yeah, it was in Levittown on Hempstead Turnpike.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then my sister, when she turned 16 and she got her car, I was younger. He already had the Redheads Lounge. And she goes, get in the car. We're going to go for a ride. We're going to go over to see Daddy at the Redhead. I go, we're not allowed to go there. We're going to get in trouble. And she goes, well, I'm going. Because she was always the rebel, the older one. So I get in the car. We pull up, and there's a big bouncer out there. And all the men are out there having cigars. They're all in suits, and the music's playing. He had beautiful music there, food, and they all hung out there. So the bouncer says, what are you doing here? What did you two get? He didn't know who we were.
Right.
Until she said, we're here to see my father. He's Tommy Petrizzo. And he goes, turn around. What do you do? Girls get lost or something? She goes, no. He goes, turn around. He actually walked us to the car. So get in the car and don't come back here. Do not come back. So then we get a phone call from my father. Or did he come home that night and start yelling at us? Yeah. What do you, don't you ever go there? That's not a place for you. That's not a place for you to ever go to. I mean, I didn't get in much trouble because I was younger than her, but she was driving. So, yeah. But yeah, he had that for a while. And then he got rid of it. I mean, I don't remember all the details, but.
Was he close to, so how close were you to Tommy or Sarah, and what about your father? What was
my father and him were really good friends. He was always really nice. I always liked him. I always thought he was a nice guy. And they were very close. I remember because he got killed in the war. I don't know all the details of
he got killed in 89, which was a couple of years before.
Oh, it was 89? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he got, someone used like a wire on his neck.
Oh, right. Yeah, so it was
killed him, and they think it was a guy Amato there's a guy, was it Pasquale Amato, I believe, that they thought did it or something. But yeah, what do you know what happened to him? Why he was killed? What did they say?
I don't know.
Did your father say anything about it after he was killed?
Well, he didn't talk to us about any of that. We didn't, But he did. I know he was really upset about Tommy. He was very, very upset about him. Yeah. He never got into the details. We all felt so bad when we heard about it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So we don't know what happened. I mean, I wrote the book. I could have looked it up and
they didn't find his body until like 2 years later.
Yeah, years later. He was buried somewhere. Yeah. I know. But I remember just feeling terrible because to me, I don't know, I was a young girl, but I just always thought he was such a nice guy. He really was.
Yeah, that's just that was pretty bad. And then you grew up around names. I mean, in the book you talk about Foxy. We mentioned a little bit of the Persicos, Michael and Carmine Vicarina, Andrew Mush Russo, and then his son Joey, and then Thomas. Was it
Gioli?
Gioli, yeah.
We all grew up together. When we went to Farmingdale High School, they were in school. I mean, they were actually a little bit older than us, but I remember coming home and telling my father, the L&M boys are in our school. The L&M boys, who's that? The little mafia. Do you know their father? You know Joey's father? And do you know this one? He's going, no, I don't know anybody. There's no such thing as the mafia. That's all he always said. But we all went to school together. We stayed friends. I'm still friends with them. Tommy lasted, I don't know, 15 years. He's home now. I mean, I visited him a few times. We talk on the phone, you know. They know about the book because I made sure that I asked if I could put, you know, their names in it. So he said, yeah, that was fine. He said, just make sure you tell them that I was so handsome in school. I go, yeah, right. So, yeah, we all stayed friends. The Russos, you know, we were always at their house. They actually lived in Farmingdale, but then moved to Upper Brookville in a big mansion. And but we were always friends. I'm still friends with Joey's wife. He died in prison.
Right.
And, you know, we had kids together. We all got married. You know, that's how my sister met Michael. She met him at Lucretia and Joey's wedding because they're first cousins. Mm-hmm. Joey and Michael Persico, Andrew Russo and Carmine Persico are cousins.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
So that's how they met. And then she started dating Michael after the wedding, and then got married. So that's how that all started. So then that's how we got involved with the Persicos.
Did you know Sonny and Michael Francis? Or
I didn't, but my sister did. My sister knew everybody, the older one. She just knew. She was more into all of that with the mafia, the mob. She was always, you know.
Yeah.
She was
you didn't
very
really
close.
Date those guys yourself,
No,
right?
No. She was very close to my father, and that's how she got involved with all of them. She knew everybody. They all knew her. She was very beautiful, and everybody knew her. And she was always like that. And then she married Michael, and I forgot one of the podcasts they asked me, what year did she marry Michael? So I think it was in 83, but I said 80. I think it was in 83. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's photos, you know, in there.
Right.
So that was, really, that was really nice. A lot of the photos.
Then the war started. So because my father, I'll just get into this. My father was very close to Vic Arena.
Vic Arena, yeah.
So, and then the war started because he wanted to he wanted to leave the Persicos and make his own family up because, you know, they wanted Allie to be the head of the family, but he was already in prison. He got life in prison then, but I don't know the whole ins and outs of it. I don't know. There's a lot of different stories about it. You know, I remember asking my father, how could you do this? I mean, your daughter's married to the Persicos, you know, so.
What did he say on that?
Well, he said, blood is thicker than loyalty or something.
Yeah, loyalty's more than blood.
Yeah, right, more than blood, because he was really close to Vic, and I don't know what the reasons were, what they saw. It was the mafia. I didn't ask any questions. I don't really know the details of that, but I couldn't believe that he was, you know, moving over to the other side, but he did.
Yeah.
So.
Then, you know, especially November and December of 91, it was horrible that, you know, there were, I don't know, 8 or 9 shootings and everything. Right. It got really bad.
I know there was 12 people that died in that war. You know, it was very bloody. I mean, I remember, you know, my mother was in the hospital dying, and all I heard, you know, they seized my father's business and everything.
Yeah,
right there my younger sister worked for him for a long time, so she knew a lot too. My younger sister, because she worked there, she was with him all the time. So she knows more about the mob and all that. I actually asked her questions when I was writing the book, because I didn't really know too much. Like my husband wasn't involved. My husband worked for my father for many years, but he didn't. My father never got him involved because I didn't want it. You know.
Yeah.
I just didn't, because I always said the only way out of this life is you're either going to be dead or you're going to be in jail. So, you know, that's how I always looked at it.
Yeah.
And when
so after the war ended, has that affected the relationships at all? Because your father was on one side and then, you know, the Persicos on another. Did they kind of make up after that? Or
yeah, they were fine after that. You know, they were okay. Him and Michael, they actually did business together or whatever after that, because then Vic was already in jail before that, you know, so he already got his life sentence. So
yeah. what do you think about these guys like Vic that they're they're not they're trying to get compassionate release and they're not letting them out, you know?
Well, of course, I know their whole family and everything, and I mean, I feel bad. He's
Mhm.
what,
I do
93?
too.
He's got
Mhm.
dementia. Why can't they let him out? I mean, where's he going? They still have
I
him
just don't understand it.
handcuffed to a bed. I mean, where he's in a wheelchair. He doesn't even know anybody. They just want to bring him home and have take care of him in a facility that they could be there for him. I mean, I think they should let him out. That's what I
I
think.
do
But
too.
yeah,
It's just yeah, we're seeing a lot of these guys in prison in their 90s, and it's just they're not a threat anymore. And plus, I would think the government would want to release them to family because the taxpayers don't have to pay for it anymore.
I know. I mean, I can't believe he lived this long. My father
Yeah.
died at 89, and Vic is still
Hmm.
living that horrible life in a jail cell. 93. I mean, it's really sad. I feel bad for the kids.
Oh, I do too. I mean, that's not. I mean, I know he committed crimes and all that kind of stuff, but I felt that he
He
paid
did his
his
time.
price. Yeah.
He's there a long time. It's over 30
Oh
years.
yeah, yeah. He was,
Yeah.
and they finally let Bobby Manna out. He was in there for a long time, and so they're starting to let a few out, but it's for some reason they're really have really fought hard against Vic every step of the way for some reason.
I don't know. I know. It's
It's
really
weird.
crazy. It really is. The poor guy. I mean, he doesn't even know who anybody is anymore. I mean, I talked to
Yeah,
his kids, and
yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that. It's just so I'm sure for you, this must have been so stressful during this war period because in '92, let's say the first part of '92, the war's going on, but then your mom comes, you find out she's got cancer. She got
yeah.
lung cancer, and she only lasts like 7 weeks.
Yeah, it
And
was so quick. It was really fast,
how
and
did that affect everything? Was he? How was the funeral? Were you able to have? Did your father go to the funeral? And
oh yeah, he was there. He was there the whole time. And then we had a big dinner at a restaurant. That was okay. Yeah, it was all right. Not his girlfriend's restaurant, but
yeah,
it was in Manhasset because that's where she lived at the time, and that's where the funeral was. But he was there.
yeah. No, that makes sense. And then what's interesting is so they have everyone gets picked up, everyone gets arrested, but then they take your father's business, right?
Right,
They they take his he had a steel business, right?
right.
And but they acquit him on that one, right? He's found not guilty on that first.
Right. Well, like you said, you mentioned like Billy Catola. They were all on his trial. Billy and Wild Bill. I think I
Yeah.
said his name wrong. I mean, I don't really know him, but I knew
Okay.
him at the
Yeah.
trial.
Wild Bill
I didn't
Catolo.
know
Uh-huh.
him. And the Arenas, he was on with John Arena. His son was on my father's trial. There was a lot of them. So they
Hmm.
got acquitted, and like you mentioned, the attorneys was Jerry Sharkell and La Rosa.
Hmm.
Was it Jimmy LaRosa? Yeah.
Yeah,
So they
Jimmy
were
LaRosa. Yeah.
yeah, he had big attorneys. I mean,
Yeah, those are
he,
two of the
he did
best.
he did close the business, but he opened up more businesses, and he had a lot of equipment. My father was like a little kid in a candy store when it came to equipment. He bought everything. He didn't lease these big things of equipment that he used and for all these buildings and everything that he did in Manhattan.
Hmm.
So he had still a lot of money when it came out because he sold a lot of the equipment. He auctioned it. He opened up more businesses. So he was okay, but he was there for 2.5 years in prison
Hmm.
before the trial. And the
Yeah,
trial,
they didn't let him have pretrial release, I guess.
no, he
Bail.
was held on bail because I think he was up for murder, for the
Oh
war.
yeah. But he was found not guilty on that. But at the same time, though, it seemed like the company AJ Ross, right? That's what
Right.
they. They
Right.
what was the
Yeah.
deal about AJ Ross? Why were they so interested in that particular business of his?
Well, because they thought it was all connected to the mob, and they were, I
Yeah.
think they actually went in there and bugged the whole office before they actually went in
Okay.
and raided it. Yeah, so they did that. So I guess they whatever. I don't really know what the government did, but so he was in prison for 2.5 years before that, and then the trial
Hmm.
was pretty long, and then they got acquitted. So, he was lucky. He was really
Yeah.
lucky. I didn't know if he was ever really going to get out.
Yeah.
I
Because
mean,
he
he
was
could have got.
facing life,
He
right?
was facing life in prison. Yeah, he was facing life. Yeah.
Wow. And then so, but then just a couple of years later, he gets a prison sentence, right? They do get him.
Yeah. Right. Actually, where'd they get him on that? Money laundering or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, um.
More
He
white
did.
collar stuff. Yeah, and let's shift gears just a moment on, you talked about Foxy, and so how do you pronounce the last name? Jerothe or
Yeah,
Jerothe?
Jerose. Jerose.
Jerothe. So Ronald Foxy Jerothe. So, you tell a powerful story about him being in your life, almost like an older brother that your dad tried to kind of keep him legit before
Right.
his
Yeah.
murder.
Tried
And
to teach him. Well, he brought him home. We lived in
yeah,
Brooklyn, New York, and he was a young kid. We were little, and he brought him home, and he would bring him over all the time to eat, and
yeah.
he was just so cute. He was like our brother. And then
Hmm.
as the years went on, we moved on to Long Island to Farmingdale. And then he would come there and visit us. But that's when my father wanted him to go to work for him
Hmm.
in New Jersey, because he was really, I guess, on the streets doing a lot of bad things,
Yeah.
which we didn't know about. We were young girls. They didn't talk about anything. But he was really into a lot of hijacking and all that stuff. So my father said, "You know what? I want to teach you something, a business. Let's come and work for me." I remember him coming to my house with his work clothes on. I said, "Oh, you
Hmm.
like working for my father?" He goes, "No, I don't." I mean, he was probably making a ton of money on the streets. He wasn't making that kind of money working for my father. Was trying to teach him the steel and industry, but he didn't like it. That didn't last long. He was back on doing what he did, and he would come over. He was just always dressed so beautiful, as he got older, and he brought over his girlfriends a few times. And, when he got killed, I mean, I didn't know what happened at the time. Who,
Right.
who knew? They didn't talk about it. But, I find out later it was Tommy DeSimone over the sister. I remember going to his funeral, though,
Hmm.
and his sister was like screaming and over the coffin, like, oh my God, because I guess she felt it was because of her or whatever that this fight started, and he killed.
Hmm.
He killed. Yeah, it was really horrible, horrible. It was a big loss for us
Hmm.
because we were very close to him, and my father and mother were very close to him. My mother loved him, like a son she never had, and it was very hurtful. I remember telling my father, "You got to find out who did this to him. You got to find out." Not that he ever came home and spoke about it, but he did say it was somebody that he knew when he opened the door, but they didn't know at that time,
Yeah.
and they
And
shot him.
Foxy was in with
The
John Gotti and
goddess,
all
the
that.
goddess. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that was just horrible. And so you write not only about your father, but you were married to Jimmy. You talk about your friend Joey. At what point did you realize you were replaying some of the emotional patterns you'd grown up with the men that you chose in your life?
I was young too when I met my ex-husband. We're not married anymore for many years, but how old was I? 20, I think. And
Yeah.
it was either 19 or 20, but we got married very young. And listen, he was impressed with the whole mob thing when he met me.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
wanted to be like my father. He wanted to be him. He wanted to jump in his shoes, I think.
Yeah.
But my father kept him separate. He let him work. He worked for him, but he never got him involved, which he wanted to be, but he didn't. And then his friend Joey, was my father's, he worked for he was my father's insurance broker for the business.
Oh,
So
okay.
they were really good friends. And we were always together with him and Joey and his wife. And so that's how it was. And I was married to him for about 20 years before I found out he was cheating. So he was just like my father. He became my father over the years. He actually became him. And that's how it was. So listen, what do you know when you're a kid? I guess, you know what? He took me to nice restaurants. He dressed beautiful. I was used to men in suits and the way they treated women, you know.
Yeah.
And so he was very respectful. And so that's what I liked about him. But besides him being involved, he was pretty involved with my father on the trial with the
Yeah.
attorneys. He kind of took over that. And then, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes sense. And I guess we'll conclude. Let's talk about the book just a little bit, a little more on the book. And so I was just kind of curious about when did you start writing the book? How long ago?
Well, it was a few years ago.
Hmm.
I was going to write it with my sisters. Three of us were going to write
Yeah.
together. But that just didn't work out because, you know, one
Hmm.
wants this, the other one wants that. It was too much arguing, and we all just said, forget it. So, I mean, I had a lot of things written. So I said, after maybe a year, I said, I'm going to do it. I just want
Hmm.
to. But I got my papers. I started doing it again. And many times I said, oh, I can't go through with this. I just can't. It's not right. I can't talk about him. But then something inside of me is I just wanted to do it. I just said,
Yeah.
you know, I just want to get my story out.
Hmm.
I mean, I feel bad sometimes. I do.
Hmm.
And the day that it was published, actually, they called me and said, "Oh, it's okay. It's published today." It was
Hmm.
December 20th, and I just moved to Florida in November,
Yeah.
so I
Right.
was driving to my daughter's house on that day, and I just started crying because it was out there. My life is out there now. I mean, there's more stories, much more. I actually think I want to write a second book, but um, I was sad. It was like I can't explain the feeling. Like
Hmm.
it's it it's out there for everybody now. It's public. Everything is public now. You know, even
Yeah.
though his story is public. I mean, everything is public knowledge. It's not like you couldn't look anything up, but
Yeah.
you know, it was just a little. It was like a bittersweet. You know.
Hmm. What was there any big surprises when you were doing the research and everything about your father? Anything that you learned that really surprised you, or
The only thing that really surprised me was about Foxy with Tommy.
oh,
What's
De
maybe some,
Simone?
but no, there was no surprises. Everything was just the way it was. I didn't even look anything up really. It was
Yeah.
just the way it was. I mean, I could have looked up more things, but no, everything was just the way it was. That was
Right.
our, that was just the life that we lived.
And then how did you decide what to include from like the mob stuff and what to leave out of the book based on respect for your family or safety? How did you approach that? Because that kind of life is secret society, and some people are willing to say more than others. And so how do you balance all of that?
Well, I think I did a good job in balancing it.
Hmm.
Put too much about the mob because I don't really know everything, and
Right.
I kept it the way it was. I mean, that was just my life, so I didn't overdo it. I didn't underdo it, and I just kept it, you know, in sync with my from when I was a little girl up until the years going through high school and meeting them, and
Hmm.
the marriages and the kids, and and I could say I had a good. I mean, listen, I go on. I was on the Angel Gotti show, and they asked me, "Do you have any regrets?"
Hmm.
I really don't. I mean, this is the life I lived. I could say
Yeah.
I regret marrying the man I married because, we got divorced and everything. But
Right.
no, because then I wouldn't have my three daughters. So I regret not opening my mouth to my father. But it's just you weren't. That's not the way we lived. You just couldn't say anything. It's just the way it was. He had a lot of control over us, his children, and about my mother. I could have said more, but then
Yeah.
he'd start screaming at you, mind your business, so I didn't, we knew this is, you don't say anything.
Yeah. No,
So
that makes sense. And then what have you heard from other people that have read the book? Have you had mostly positive reactions from your family and different people, or what's been people's thoughts?
I have all good review. Everybody loves the book. Everybody.
Good.
I mean, a little bit with the family on the Persico side.
Hmm.
They don't listen. They have both sides. It's my father was the captain, in the family, and Carmine was the head of the family. So it was a little, I don't know.
Yeah.
I never really got any feedback. I just hear from the grapevine, that they were,
Yeah.
they don't like talking about everything, but I
Yeah.
wrote the book. I mean, I called my brother-in-law, I called Michael, and I said, listen,
Hmm.
because I know you're writing a book. I said, so I said, well, I'm going to put a picture in of you and my sister and my father. And he said, he was quiet. And then he said, all right. And he said, all right, I wish you luck. That was
Hmm.
it. He didn't say anything. So I said, all right. And I think when people read it, I'm not saying anything. Even with the girlfriend, I could have said a lot more.
Yeah.
I could have, but I kind of kept it classy. I didn't make it like it was so. I'm not one of those Italian women that, cursing and screaming. We were always more low key. So I'm not
Yeah.
that type of a person. But maybe my next book will be a little different because I have a few more stories to put in there. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that makes
yeah,
sense. And
yeah.
and when readers close this book, what do you hope they take away about your father, about the mob myth, and what it really cost a family to live in that shadow?
Yeah, it's a big difference to live that way than, but who did I really compare it to? I mean, other people that I went to school with, besides all of them that lived a different life. But,
Hmm.
it was just the way we were brought up. We don't really know the difference of it. But, I'm not going to say it was terrible because it wasn't. It was,
Yeah.
I thought I had a good life until certain things happened.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. And for people who want to support you, whether it's this book, your art, or maybe a future project, where do you want them to go to find you?
Well, they could go to Christine's paint studio because I am an artist. So they can
Hmm.
go there, or the book is Christine Petrizzo book.com. But they can just look me up and just look up my name. And the book is on
Yeah.
Amazon.
Hmm.
It's on a few other platforms, but I guess everybody buys it on Amazon. But I think it's a great book.
Yeah, it is.
I
I,
so
I really like it.
it's a good story. Everyone that read it, I only get good reviews.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, I
think
have
it's great.
people that I don't even know, and then they get to me through Messenger, and they'll say,
Hmm.
"Read your book. Oh my God, it's great. I can't put it down." These are men that even they kind of knew my father, but I didn't know them.
Hmm.
They're saying, I mean, I met so many nice people on there. Actually, Tommy O'Sera's his nephew got in touch with me on there, and he
Oh,
said, "I just want to
nice.
thank you for talking
Hmm.
nice about my uncle because you know what? Not a lot of people said nice things about him, and I
Hmm.
always thought he was such a nice. That's the way I saw him. But yeah, a lot
Right.
of people reach out to me on Messenger, and I only got all good reviews, so that's
No,
great.
no,
I'm happy about that.
I know that it was a good book. I read it, and I recommend for all of you to go out there and get the book. And there'll be links for everything in the description and all of that. And before we close, is there anything you'd like to say to the viewers?
Just thank you for supporting me.